Over the past 5 or 6 years on this channel, we've mentioned the band Chase Atlantic several times. We've done videos where we break down productions that I've done for similar artists. We've done videos where I break down how they do some of their cool production techniques. And every time we do something about Chase Atlantic, you guys all love it. And I figured I would dive in today and I would actually show you how to build a song from start to finish in the style of Chase Atlantic, because we've never really done that specifically. So we're going to dive in and I'm going to show you everything that would go into that project. But they did just release a brand new album today, so we're kind of celebrating. They just released their new album, Lost in Heaven, and to make it even more special, I actually got to work on the album with them. So if you listen to track 10, it's called Amy. I got to co-produce that with the boys. So they're normally self-produced. They do all of their own production. They never, ever, ever work with outside producers. So when I got the opportunity to work with them, I was super, super stoked. I've been listening to them for 7, 8 years. So go listen to it. Go show them some love and some support. Go listen to Amy. I'm not going to be breaking that down today because since it was a co-production, there's a lot of stuff they did on their end that I can't really break down. But I figured to celebrate, I would just make something completely new. So we're going to dive in and check that out. If you do want to be entered to win our weekly giveaway, you can win any of our sample packs, preset packs, or MIDI packs from our website, makepopmusic.com. All you have to do is leave a comment between now and November 4th. I'm going to pick a winner at random on Tuesday, November 5th. And yeah, you can pick any one free item from our store. So if you want to do that, leave a comment below. Check out our website after the video. Show us some love and support. But let's dive in so we can show you how to make a Chase Atlantic song. As for the main noise that we're going to be using for a lot of this song, it's just a really, really lush pad. Chase Atlantic is always known for having these really big, kind of cinematic, lush productions. So I'm actually just using a preset out of our serum pack called Lush. It was just literally created for stuff like this. And then in terms of the chords, I've noticed that over the years, they use a lot of extended chords. So they'll use a lot of like 7ths and 9ths, and they'll change their voicings around. So we could probably do something like a F major 7, A minor 7, E minor 7. Maybe play that an octave lower. Yeah, that feels pretty good. I'm going to lay that down. So I have that main progression of just F major 7, A minor 7, E minor 7. I do want to layer that kind of spacey pad out with something that has a little bit more texture and depth. So we're actually using this pad. It's called the mellow vocal pad. And what I'm going to do with this is kind of play some background stuff. So I'm going to kind of do some counter melodies. Just little things like that. And then just to post-process it a little bit, I'm actually going to put on an Echo Boy at like a 50% mix. I want this to be pretty spacey, and I'm just going to add a little bit of EQ to take some of the top end off. When we play both of those together, we get this. It feels lush, it feels sad, but it also has this like, it doesn't feel super, super dark. It feels sad and somber without feeling like really, really eerie and creepy. So that feels pretty good. Another thing that I've noticed in a lot of Chase Atlantic songs, and it ended up being all over the track Amy, is that they'll do like these like wavy melodic vocals underneath that are almost like a vocal chop, but it's really just singing a riff with a bunch of effects on it. So I'm going to track that up and then kind of show you what I mean. So here's a vocal. It's literally just me singing. And then I'm just going to process it like a normal vocal. But what we're going to do is in auto-tune all the way fast retune speed and format at 137. And then just some more normal processing. With this, we're just starting to filter it out. And I just sang completely random melodies. Now to give it its sauce, we need this 910 harmonizer. We have this on the vocal thickener setting at like 45% wet. That's going to add some chorus and modulation. Then we have an Echo Boy Jr. doing a quarter note like space echo. We want it super ambient, super spacey. We're going to do a gigantic reverb at like 6 seconds. And then we're also going to do this like phaser from Sound Toys as well called Phase Mistress. We're just doing kind of like a 2-bar sweep. Now it sounds really cool, but to really put it in that kind of Chase Atlantic space, they use a lot of like panning and it almost sounds like binaural stuff. So we're going to use Brower Motion. This is by Waves. This is basically like a binaural panner. And this thing is absolutely insane. So I just found this little preset. And it's kind of just like instant texture. And then the next thing is just controlling that with some EQ. So just scooping out a lot of those mids and band passing that. And then you get this. And I just want one little counter melody, and then we can kind of move on from the keys. For the counter melody, I'm actually using Sky keys. I just got this like a month ago, and I really like it. I'm actually using the reverse setting on this unpleasant piano. And it kind of just plays them as a reverse melody. So I'm just playing this little arpeggio. Just to give us some texture. It's not doing anything wildly like unique or special. Just gives us a little bit of that kind of like granular movement. And then to layer this up, we just need like a kind of Reese bass layered under the verse. You can just do something like this. This is just the purest Reese. I think this is also out of our Lush pack. So if you want to enter that giveaway, you could win Lush for Serum. Really, really nice Reese. So up to A, down to E. So I'll just track that and put that in, and then we'll move on to the drums. All right, let's take a look at what we're gonna do with the drums. So for the main kind of kick, we just have like a really trappy, kind of thuddy kick. And then I just have some different like rim hits layered in here. And one thing that I've noticed in a lot of Chase Atlantic songs is they'll have a lot of like accent hits. So instead of just that snare being on the 2, so 1, 2, it's kind of a... And then we're going to layer that with the main rim, so it can kind of be our main hit on the 2. And then to really take it over the edge, we just have one little background layer, kind of giving us that like pretty typical trap backbeat. And it's all about the bounce. If you're trying to do a song like Chase Atlantic or any of those other similar artists, it's really all about getting a lot of that bounce in the rhythm. And then just to kind of make it a little bit more spacey, we layered in these snare layers that we have from our Sweet Tooth pack, just kind of like a rim hit layer and then a snare. And it really just adds a lot of like character. And then the last thing is this little hat loop that I basically chopped up. This is also from Sweet Tooth. And in the verses of the songs, a lot of Chase Atlantic records will be very, very sparse with hi-hats. Give ourselves a little triplet snare there. And I'm actually only going to drag this in for the second half. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I want to add one pad to kind of come in and layer over when everything gets a little bit bigger. And then that'll do it for most of the verse. A lot of this is going to be vocal production. So I want to do this like granular pad. A lot of the time, I like using things that have like extra texture in them. So we're going to do just kind of like a brass sound. And to take it to the next level, I'm actually going to use EFX Fragments. This is by Arturia. And this will just do some granular movement. So now we'll have something like... And you can hear how different that is from... So what I'll do is I'll do that and then print it out because I like to just find the right moment of granular texture. Otherwise, you could get these weird like clicks and pops. So I'm going to render that out. So we have that granular pad printed out. And it felt a little thick in the mix, so I actually just ended up doing that little like counter melody on top of it. I didn't want all of those big chords. Got a little bit cluttered to me. And then what I did to kind of give it a little bit of extra texture is I added transit. This is by Baby Audio. We just did a whole video talking about this. But I basically set up an LFO to give me some reverse, some tremolo, some modulation, and then just delay. Just kind of really take it out of this normal space. We have that about 50% wet. A lot of the time, those Chase Atlantic records that feel so big and cinematic, it's all about finding layers that you can kind of process to take up so much space and have so much extra character and texture and depth. So instead of just using, you know, a synth preset, you can use that as a starting point. And then it's about layering things that will kind of give you those reverses, those extra granular moments, those big delay throws. So that feels pretty good for the verse. I think we're probably done. The only thing that I did want to talk about is you can see that I have kickstart on a lot of these. And that's because I am basically sidechaining everything to this kick. So when I was at the Chase Atlantic show, I went and hung out with them a little while after and was talking to them. And Mitchell was like, the one thing every time we do a record, no matter who's mixing it or, you know, who else is going to touch it, the drums have to knock. And part of that drum knocking is sidechaining everything to it. So if we go up to this kick, you can see that we have everything. We have the chorus Reese, the pads, all those granular pads. Those are all being sidechained to that kick drum. Let's move on to the pre-chorus. I kind of want to change the chords and just give us a slightly different vibe. So for this pre-chorus, I really wanted to pick a sound that had a bunch of texture and like noise and atmosphere in it. So I found this preset, Sidewalk. This is also out of the Lush pack. And it just has this bird noise kind of layered in. And it's so pretty to me. So for this chord progression, what I want to do is I want to play that F major. Go down to that E minor 7. And then I want to play that A minor 7 and go back to that E minor 7. But what I'm going to do is invert the chords. So they're technically the same exact chords, but rather than these being up here, we're basically just playing a second inversion. And that'll kind of give us a whole different texture. Let me show you. F major 7, E minor 7, A minor 7, also E minor 7. And so if we had that versus this, it just feels different. Here's the normal voicing. But if we play it like this, you get that. And it can just help to kind of like change the atmosphere of a song. And so a lot of the time, even if I'm not kind of breaking out and doing a bunch of new chords for a pre-chorus or a bridge or something, I'll change the voicing so at least they feel a little bit different. So that feels pretty good. I'm going to layer kind of like a background ooh and ah, get this pre-chorus layered up a little bit, and then we'll talk about a chorus. Let's break down these pre-chorus layers. There's nothing that new. There's just that granular pad that we still had. And then just me riffing with that kind of crazy vocal effect with the phaser and the brower motion and all of that stuff. And then the only other thing was I did find this loop. I think this is just out of Splice. I'm pitching this down 2 semitones, and then I just have a little bit of EQ on it. And it's just giving us a slightly different texture. It's all about kind of the push and pull of some of those atmospheric sounds, and it's about having something that feels like it's kind of flowing and it's kind of dynamic. Like you have this one kind of fading in, it starts with that high note. These runs kind of start with a low note, and everything just kind of interacts and swims together. And that's really what gives you that texture of something like a Chase Atlantic record, in my opinion. As somebody who's just listened to them since their early EPs and now has had the opportunity to work with them, it really is all about space and vibe. And then the only thing that we're doing is we're just layering this little percussion loop over it to give us some movement. And that just gives us a whole new vibe from this verse to this pre-chorus. Let's go in and let's kind of build up this chorus. I really want to start with drums because if we can get the bounce and the swing right, I think everything else kind of naturally falls into place. Let's take a look at this drum because there's a lot of stuff happening. So a lot of it is really just a version of what we had before. So the main rim, all those accent rims, the accent hits. The kick is a little bit busier now, is really the only thing, but other than that, rims are happening the same. Still have those little stuttery snare hits. But we're adding quite a bit of like hi-hat and percussion stuff. So we have these little top loops that we're playing with. Stop. So what we're doing too is we're going to give ourselves little moments to have stops. That feels super Chase Atlantic. I think one of the things that you'll hear in a lot of their songs is they'll have moments where there's big tape stops, there's big pullouts, and it kind of just adds a lot of hype. So we're kind of doing that as well. Both of those percussion loops are just from our Sweet Tooth pack as well. There's a lot of cool like textural ear candy stuff in that pack, so it was perfect for this video. And then we just have 2 different hi-hats, and again, these are kind of doing a call and response to each other. So we have one happening on the right side and one on the left. And it's all about finding something that works really well with the bounce of the track. So listen to the relationship between the kick, the rim shots, the percussion loops, and those hi-hats. And then for the second kind of pull out, we just have another little drum fill right here. And that's really it for the drums. Kick, rim shots, snare layers for texture, little kind of snare fills, and then just the perc loops and the hi-hat loops. Let's layer in some of the kind of like ear candy hits and stuff like that, because I think those will build a lot of energy, and it'll kind of build that tension from the pre-chorus. Let's talk a little bit about like ear candies and hits and stuff, because this is a big thing, is like building up that atmosphere as well. So in that pre-chorus, we just have some like tonal hits and risers and things like that. Not anything wild. Just a little tonal hit playing an F, and then that big like cellar impact. And then we just have a couple risers to kind of build the tension going into the hook. And then that little pull out. And then the big thing, this is like the key to a Chase Atlantic chorus in my opinion, is this big crash. That's just out of our dark pop pack. You layer that with a couple like exhausts and textures. Little reverse. And that really gives you a lot of that. Let's go ahead and put a bass under here because I want a lot more movement in the bass. I don't just want to do a pad like this. We're using the same exact bass pad. I just have it up quite a bit in the mix. And then the key is I'm not letting these notes sustain. I'm kind of playing them with the kick drum. And then you'll see that we're going to do some slides right here. So for instance, and the way that you do that is just by having a patch that is essentially in a monophonic mode with a portamento slide. So if we had, kind of gives you that slide. So we're just going to play those out just like this MIDI pattern. Now let's layer over some of those synths. We have a lot of synths that we are probably just going to pull over from the verse, but I'll go over the new ones that we add. Let's dive into the synths. We have those spacey keys. We have that high pad. We have more background oohs and ahs that I sang. We have that granular pad. And I've took off that filter, so now it's a bit brighter. We have that same little vocal chop. But let's talk about the new elements. So we have this little buzzy synth. I wanted something that had a little bit more top in. So I found this Organish preset out of Lush and just changed one of the wavetables. So I changed this from, I believe it was the add seconds to evolution. And we're just going to let that play down. It's not doing anything too wild. And in terms of processing, it's just Echo Boy. And it's kick-started as well from the kick drum. So everything's kind of sidechaining. So it just kind of gives us that top texture. Hear it? Just to kind of make those ones hit. And then the next thing is I wanted one counter melody in here, so I found these packs from Echo Soundworks. The Vibes pack is so sick for some of these like textural like pianos and stuff like that. So I played the mallet thumb piano and then processed it with some transit and some halftime. So transit is doing some reversing, and then halftime is essentially just layering this under as like a 1-bar pitch down halftime loop. And when you hear that in the actual context of it playing out, it sounds like this. Versus this. So we have a little loop right here being triggered. We have a reverb. We have some delay. And then I think I turned the reverser off. Yeah, the reverse is too much for me. What we're going to do is actually layer that on the left side with a similar sound but in a higher octave. This is the Marimba Dusty Keyboard. So we're just kind of playing that same exact pattern, same exact effects, and we're panning one left and one right. And that's just kind of our counter melody. Then we just have this vocal hit. It was just a sound I got out of Splice and then put a gigantic kind of dotted quarter note on here. That was it, and now it's... So here's what everything sounds like together. One thing that we do need to do is we need to add like a tape stop to this bus. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, kind of show you what we're working with. So what we're doing to kind of accent those stops is I'm using the tape stop plugin from Keylab. This thing is fire. Essentially, it's just going to kind of wind down all of the audio. And I just put that on my synth bus, so you'll hear it here. And we do that. We also mute the bass, we mute the drums. Everything sounds like this all together. So now that we have that done, that kind of adds that moment that we needed, and then we're gonna layer over some guitar. Here's what we have for the guitar. So I actually used the brand new Jack Antonoff guitar. Let me show you. This is what I just tracked everything on. It is the Gretsch. I think it's his signature model. And yeah, it sounded really, really, really great. And then to even make it sound a little bit better, I used this brand new JHS Colorbox V2. It's the 10-year anniversary. They just actually announced it this week. I got sent one a couple months ago just to kind of try out. And essentially, it's like a 1073 preamp, and it has some EQ in there. So I actually just drove the preamp a little bit harder to get just a hair of gain and saturation. And then I just did some EQ on here just to make that tone super fat and super thick. And then I just processed it. Here's what the DI sounded like with nothing. And then I just popped on the Corey Wong amp. I should also say that technically these are pitched up an octave because I played them an octave lower and then I decided that I didn't really like that. So technically this is the DI. But we're going up an octave so they kind of float on top of the mix. And in the Corey Wong amp we have some compression. We have this on the bright setting and I didn't really touch anything else. And then we just have a bunch of reverb, chorus, and delay. Then we have a spring reverb just kind of adding that springy sound. This is a Magma Springs, and then just some EQ taking out some of those crazy spring resonances. And we just layered that on the left side. So we got something that sounds like this. And now let's layer in some vocals. Let's take a look at the lead vocal first. So this is what it sounded like coming straight out of my mic. I used the Loudon Audio Eden into the Rupert Neve Designs, what is that, Newton channel strip, and then into an 1176 and an Opto compressor. So here's what my vocal sounded like.
Can't remember what I did last night. Put my money on I got too high.
And to get that Chase Atlantic sound, it's about compressing it a ton. So I'm using another 1176 here, kind of medium attack, fast release. And I'm getting probably 5 to 7.
Can't remember what I did last night. Put my money on I got.
And then I just have some EQ. The moves here are not super crucial. I don't show my EQ a lot in these tutorials because that to me is more so taste and source dependent. So I'm just kind of thinning it out a hair. And then I just have one more compressor. And this is adding a lot of mid crunch as well.
Can't remember what I did last night.
Next thing is auto tune. Let's look at the settings. I have the retune speed at 3, flex tune at 16, and humanize at 25.
Can't remember what I did last night. Put my money on I got too high.
And that kind of gave me that sound that Mitchell always has in his vocal. Next thing is just another EQ, just to kind of tone shape, and then some de-esser.
Can't remember what I did last night. Put my money on I got too high.
And then one more EQ just to kind of like sort out some of those mids, and a vocal de-esser here.
Can't remember what I did last night. Put my money on I got too high.
And then the last thing is MB, just kind of shaping this up. And the thing that we're going for is a super compressed, super smacky vocal that isn't overly harsh. So let's hear this in the mix with no wet effects. This is without any delay or reverb or anything.
Can't remember what I did last night. Put my money on I got too high.
And now when we add the sauce, let's go over what that is. We have a parallel widening down here that is the Roland Dimension D. We talk about it all the time on this channel. I have it on setting 3, and I'm blending that in for some modulation and width, and that sounds like this.
Can't remember what I did last night.
And it just widens that vocal up. Then we have a plate reverb. The plate reverb is just a vintage verb on like a 3-second plate. Not doing anything wild at all. Here are my settings if you want to take a screenshot and copy them. And then I just do some filtering, like some Abbey Road style band passing on this thing, just to thin it out so it doesn't get in the way of my vocal. And then I just have an 1/8 note delay from Echo Boy on the studio tape setting with feedback at like 32. And then I have a 1/4 note delay with Echo Boy with a feedback at 42. And once you layer all of those in, you kind of get this sound. And it gives you that kind of textural, wide sound you want.
Can't remember what I did last night. Put my money on I got too high.
So that's the main vocal. Chase Atlantic songs, I feel like, are actually a little bit more dry on the lead vocal than you would anticipate because they sound so crazy. But where that comes in is all of the background vocals. So I kept my lead vocal rather dry, and then to layer it, I have this like low vocal layer. We've talked about this on the channel a bunch before. It's essentially just my lead vocal pitched down an entire octave in auto-tune, and then widened with doubler, and then just compressed a little bit more.
Can't remember what I did last night. Put my money on I got too high.
Can't remember when I felt alive. Got a 10-foot void I can feel inside.
Now let's talk about the things that really make it feel like a Chase Atlantic song. Let's talk about the ad libs. All of this is a normal vocal chain up to the Echo Boy, so I'm not going to go over that. But I'm doing a 1/4 note with mix at like 35%. I'm doing the 910 harmonizer on the vocal thickener setting with a mix at 45%. And then I'm doing a vintage verb with a 12-second reverb. This thing is crazy. And then I'm actually just filtering this out quite a bit. So let's hear this. I might shorten this up just a hair. Maybe we'll go to like 8 seconds.
Can't remember when I felt alive. Got a 10-foot.
And we're going to filter this out a little bit less once we get to the chorus, but it's all about having those like really spacey layers underneath. The next thing is we just have these big 1/4 note throws, so I just have this on a 1/4 note space echo, and then I'm using a little bit of reverb to help tuck that into the mix. Just on accent words. And that allows me to keep that lead vocal a little bit drier, but then have those spacey moments where I want them.
Can't remember what I did last night. Put my money on I got too high. Can't remember when I felt alive. Got a 10-foot void.
And then the last thing is that kind of signature 1/8 note delay throw that you're going to hear in Chase Atlantic songs. I'm actually using the Echo Cat for this one, and I have the sustain at 75%. And for the heads, I'm only using head 1 on an 1/8 note delay. And so all I do is kind of like let that rip, put the feedback really high, but then I'll print it out so that feedback doesn't ring throughout my whole mix, and then you're just left with something like this. Super, super kind of signature Chase Atlantic throw.
Too high. Can't remember when I felt.
And then when you put them all together, you get this vocal that feels still dry and bright and punchy, but you kind of have the space fill out on the sides.
Can't remember what I did last night. Put my money on I got too high. Can't remember when I felt alive. Got a 10-foot void I can feel inside. White lines, red eyes, back shows, bright lights, but nothing seems to get my head.
Swap the melody as soon as the drums come in. Other than that, it's just those 1/4 note delay throws that happen. We'll kind of listen to the track in just a second. Let's look at the chorus production. So the lead vocal's kind of doing the same thing. It's just a little bit louder and a little bit more aggressive.
Now it's 2 a.m. and I'm high again. Wishing desperately that I could go and phone a friend, but I'm all alone in my bed now, I'm lying in it.
So there's our main. Then we have a harmony down here, and the harmony just has micro shift on it to widen it. I've noticed Chase Atlantic doesn't do a lot of like super layering, like super wide vocal stacks. It's normally a lead, and then if they want a harmony, I've noticed that a lot of the time it just seems like it's kind of one here or there. It's not these really wide, 8, 9, 10 layer vocal arrangements. So we have this.
Now it's 2 a.m. and I'm high again. Wishing desperately that I could go and phone a friend, but I'm all alone in my bed now.
Just kind of doing a pedal tone underneath, and then we have a harmony doing a pedal tone above it.
Now it's 2 a.m. and I'm high again. Wishing desperately that I could go and phone a friend, but I'm all alone.
And they're tucked real low in the mix.
Now it's 2 a.m. and I'm high again. Wishing desperately that I could go and phone a friend, but I'm all alone in my bed.
Really just for texture. And then we have that low vocal again.
Now it's 2 a.m. and I'm high again.
Same thing with the quarter note throws.
Now it's 2 a.m. and I'm high again. Wishing desperately that I could go and
And then for the ad-libs for the chorus, let me show you what we're doing that's a little bit different. So yeah, this one's a 6-second decay, and you can see that we're not band passing them. So essentially it's the same thing. Here's what it sounds like without all the saucy layers.
Yeah, so
Add our echo boy and our harmonizer and our vintage.
yeah, so high now.
And then the only other thing is we have this little harmony punch-in that comes in right here.
But I'm alone.
And then the only thing is like we're gonna automate this 8th note delay right here. So we're gonna do this.
But I'm alone.
And that's gonna give us a cool little 8th note throw. And it sounds great. Now we can hear it with the lead vocal. Here's all of the vocals kind of doing that.
You and found a friend, but I'm all alone in my bed, now I'm lying it. I took a couple substances, but now I'm fighting it. And it's 3 a.m.
Then we just have more ad-libs. We have that 8th note throw right here. And again, I'm just kind of cutting that. There's actually a click and a pop in there that's annoying. And then we just have the signature kind of Mitchell whoa.
Whoa, AM, can't sleep now. Popping too much. Whoa.
And then that's essentially it. Other than that, it's all just about picking the right moments to have your ad-libs and your delay throws. Then we have this kind of signature 8th throw that gets printed out and then kind of acts as a natural riser. So it sounds like this with the lead.
Of you and me.
And essentially I'm just printing that, duplicating that, and kind of like automating a rise in there. And then the last vocal that I'll talk about is this little outro vocal. It's essentially just me singing. Echo Boy is on there, quarter note, harmonizer's on there at the 45% that we've been talking about. Nothing super new on this. And then we'd still have that like 6-second plate. It sounds like this.
Trying to wipe the memories of you and me.
Doing that thing that you'll hear in a lot of like Chase Atlantic, Black Bear, Platinum, where I'm just automating this format so you can watch it right here.
Trying to wipe the memories of you and me.
And we're just doing that over some of our spacey synths. And that really is the entire production. So I'm going to go ahead and play it from start to finish so you can hear it. But again, if you want to hear the actual song that I worked on with Chase Atlantic, it's called Amy. It's on their new album that just dropped today. And if you want to enter that giveaway, leave a comment down below before, I believe it was November 4th. Yeah, leave a comment before November 4th. And we're going to pick one person at random, but let's check it.
Can't remember what I did last night. Put my money on, I got too high. Can't remember when I felt alive. Got a 10-foot void I can feel inside. White lines, red eyes, back shows, bright lights, but nothing seems to get my head right. I tried everything, Molly, weed, academy, therapy, and getting clean. But if I'm gonna be honest, coming down is making me nauseous. What's another time of breaking my promise? Right back at where I started, and I'm sorry. Now it's 2 a.m. and I'm high again. Wishing desperately that I could go and phone a friend, but I'm all alone in my bed, now I'm lying it. I took a couple substances, but now I'm fighting it. And it's 3 a.m. and I can barely sleep. Haven't eaten anything now in a couple weeks. Popping too much, made my bed, now it's killing me. No record, it's got me ruining my chemistry. Trying to wipe the memories of you and me.
So there you have it. Again, this is not a mixed project. This is kind of just something that I made as fast as possible for the tutorial's sake. I will say, as always with these artist kind of sound-alike videos, don't try to copy an artist's style one for one. The reason that I make these is so you can learn a lot of cool kind of signature techniques and kind of see what might be going on under the hood to use those in your own style or your own productions or kind of to your own taste. So feel free to take some of these elements from, you know, the spatialness, all of the ad-libs, all of the different texture and ear candy, and try to incorporate that into your mix. You might find that it actually comes out insane. So once again, thanks to the boys in Chase Atlantic for letting me contribute to their album. Thank you to all of you for watching this video and for all the support over the years. Go ahead and check out our website, makepopmusic.com. We have sample packs, preset packs, MIDI packs, tons of free sounds. And then if you want to enter that giveaway, leave a comment down below and go stream Chase Atlantic's new album so I can get a plaque to hang on my wall. Other than that, I'll see you guys next week with another video. Much love. Peace.